Shabbat Shalom. We begin with a wordless nigun to get us breathing together, beating hearts together. A melody without words, but with plenty of heart by Reb Shlomo Carlebach. Try it with me. And like all good nigunim, we take it up a notch. Try it. First one. It is always a blessing to gather on Shabbat, to usher in the day we mirror God's rest after the work of creation all week. Tonight, we honor not only this very special connection with divinity, but also the sacred pact we made at the foot of Mount Sinai, the revelation of Torah and our rush to accept this relationship with God as our sovereign. So in this spirit, I invite you to embody the experience of being at the foot of Sinai, fresh from witnessing God's miracles, smoke and fire on the mountain, and now, in the silence of this room, listen to the still, small voice, the one in your heart that called on you to be in this room this evening. To be among the multitudes of Bnei Israel gathered in Chevra across the globe to sanctify Shabbat, which was commandment number 4, and study the laws we inherited as descendants of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Naomi, and Ruth. Please turn to page 128 in your prayer books. Second song from the top. How lovely is this day. Shabbat Shalom. Maya hayom, Shabbat Shalom. Maya hayom, Shabbat Shalom. Help lead us. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Maya hayom. Shabbat Shalom. Maya hayom. Shabbat Shalom. Let us welcome each other in this respite in time. In the words of Abraham Joshua Heschel, Shabbat is a palace in time. So let us take in the air of this precious day to immerse in Shabbat together, brothers and sisters, friends. Hine matov. Hine matov umanayim, shevet achim gam yachad. 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 How wonderful to be with you tonight, to pray and to rejoice in the presence of God on this sacred occasion. Let us go down to the middle song, same page. We're going to pretty much cover page 128 tonight. Yedid Nefesh, heart's delight, source of mercy, draw us into your arms. Yedid Nefesh of Rahman, Yedid Nefesh of Rahman, Meshoch Avdecha, El Ritzonecha, Meshoch Avdecha, Yalalalailai, El Ritzonecha. Yarutz Avdecha, Kemu Hayah, Ishtachave, Yaidadadadaidai, El Muhadarecha. Yarutz Avdecha, Kemu Hayah, Ishtachave, Yaidadadadaidai, El Muhadarecha. I think if we waited until we saw the stars before we lit the Shabbat candles, we'd be well into our Tikkun, our Torah studies. So we're going to go ahead, even though sun is still streaming in through the stained glass, and light our Shabbat candles. So Charlotte could join me. The blessing is found on page 120. Amen. When I keep Shabbat, God watches over me, and you, and you. It is signed forever between God and God's people. Ki Eshmer Shabbat on page 129. Ki Eshmer Shabbat El Yishmereini. Ki Eshmer Shabbat El Yishmereini. Oti le'umeyad beino uveini. Oti le'umeyad beino uveini. Ki eshmer Shabbat el yishmereini. Ki eshmer Shabbat el yishmereini. Oti le'umeyad beino uveini. Oti le'umeyad beino uveini. So we have greeted each other, we've sung a few songs and pray of praise to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One of Blessing. Shabbat is a joyous occasion, so let's bring it up a notch and welcome the angels to our sanctuary. Shalom Alechem, Malachei Hasharet, page 142. Shalom Alechem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzitchem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I believe it is about time to open the door and welcome our Kala, our Shabbat bride. Shekhinah, the name for God's dwelling presence, enters, and we rise on the final verse of Lecha Dodi. Then the room is filled with all of our special guests, so we can transition into our central prayers. We'll sing verses 1, 2, 8, and 9. And when we get to the 9th verse, Boi Kala, we face the door, we bow, and we enter as she enters the room and becomes part of our kahal. Page 138, 139, verses 1, 2, 8, and 9. Lecha Dodi likrat kalai yalandai Pnei Shabbat nekabela Lecha Dodi likrat kalai yalandai Pnei Shabbat nekabela Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad Yishmihanu Ushmo echad, l'shem u'tiferet, v'li tehila. Lecha Dodi likrat kalai, yalalai, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kalai, yalalai, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha ki mekor haberacha merosh mikedem nesucha sof ma'aseh machshava tehila lecha Dodi likrat kalai yalalai Pnei Shabbat nekabela yalalai Pnei Shabbat nekabela Yamin u'smol tifrotzi V'et Adonai taritzi Ayadish ben partzi V'nismecha v'nagila Lecha Dodi likrat kala yalalai Pnei Shabbat nekabela Lecha Dodi likrat kala yalalai Pnei Shabbat nekabela. She's standing at the door. We rise and we greet the kala. Boi v'shalom ateret bala Gam b'simcha u'tzoch ola Toch emunei am segula Boi chala Lecha Dodi likrat kala yalalai Pnei Shabbat nekabela Lecha Dodi likrat kala yalalai Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Please remain standing as we transition into our central prayers on page 144, Chatzi Kaddish. There are several different types of Kaddishim, and they're like tent poles. They hold up the sanctity of the service as we go from one section to the next. So we did our welcoming songs, and now we're going to do our central prayers, and we do, of course, the mourner's Kaddish before we close. Page 144. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba v'yalmad divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechonu v'yomech Israel, Bagala, Bagala, ובזמן קריב, ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם יומי הומיה, יתברך, יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי בקודשה בריחו, לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן ויאמה, ואמרו Amen. The central call to prayer, I will do the call if you will do the answer on second and third line on page 146. Baruch hu et Adonai Amavorach. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vaed. You may be seated. Turning to page 148, our Ma'ariv Aravim prayer, where we acknowledge God as the creator of day and night, rolling from night to day and day to night as a sure thing, and we trust our ever-living God to continue to watch over us from day to night to day. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bivaro mariv aravim b'chokhma poteach sheharim uvidvuna meshaneh itim ומחליף את הזמנים ומסדר את הכוכבים במשמרותיהם ברקיע כרצונו בורא יום ולילה גולל אור מפני חושך וחושך מפני אור וחושך מפני אור ומעביר יום ומביא לילה ומבדיל בין יום ולילה אדוני צבאות שמו אל חי וקיים תמיד מוכנים לעולם ועד ברוך אתה אדוני המעריב ערבים. As we trust God as our creator, we trust that God will love us with an everlasting, unconditional love, independent of all our flaws, maybe because of them. God is steadfast. Page 150. Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael Amecha ahavta Amcha ahavta Torah mitzvot חוקים ומשפטים אותנו לימדת, אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו וקומנו נשיח בחוקיך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ומצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי כן חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגה יומם ולילה, נגה יומם ולילה. ואהבתך תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהבנו ישראל. And we return that love as one, as we were one at the Mount Sinai when we accepted our commandments. We were united. And we call page 152 as one. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. We continue on page 154 with the first and last blessing paragraphs of the Shema in Hebrew on the top of the page, followed by the English on the bottom. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבבך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם מאוד על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Together in English, you shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand and let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Thus you shall remember to observe all my commandments and to be holy to your God. I am Adonai, your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai, your God. Adonai Elohechem Emet. Let's turn to page 157. As we reenact our march to freedom with the Michamocha, the dance on the opposite shore, we'll introduce that with the reading at the top of the page, if you'll read with me. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before we ever stood at Sinai's foot. That wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt. That there is a better place, a promised land. That the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness. That there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. Michamocha, page 158. Yai la lai lai, yai la lai lai, yai la lai lai, la lai la 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 lai, yai la lai lai, yai la lai lai, yai la lai lai, la lai la 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 lai, yai la lai la la lai, la la lai lai, yai la lai lai, yai la 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 lai. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאי ישראל. Hashkivenu is a prayer for asking for security as the night comes. It's a Mariv blessing, a Mariv prayer. And in the darkness, there's so much that's hidden from us. We ask God to shelter us beneath God's wings. And what we pray for, among other things, peace, of course, and love. So we'll use some of the English on page 161 with the opening lines of Hashkivenu. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Hashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu. Hashkivenu, Leshalom. Hashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu. Ashkivenu Leshalom. Baruch atah Adonai, Haporeis Shalom Aleinu, Ve'akol Amo Yisrael, Ve'Yerushalayim. This next prayer on page 162 is lifted right from today's Torah portion. It's commandment number 4 we read this morning. The people of Israel shall keep Shabbat, observing it throughout the ages as a covenant for all time. Veshameru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש. Please rise. For the next few moments, it is your turn, your one-on-one, your prayer to the Holy One of Blessing, our sovereign, our king, our queen. And as we approach royalty, we step forward and bow, but before we do that, we take 3 steps back so that we can take 3 steps forward. And the blessings here are meant to be blessings that we say on Shabbat and on our one-on-one with God. But I also invite you to either read the words from page 164 to 181, or take a moment to close the prayer book and say what's on your mind. And when you're done, have a seat, and then I'll know that you've finished. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid elatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Continue silently. Shalom Imroma, Uyase Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel, Ve'imru, Amen. Ose Shalom Imroma, Uyase Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel, Ve'imru, Shalom Bimroma, Huyase Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel, Ve'imru, Amen. Shalom Bimroma, Uyase Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel, Ve'imru, Amen. We add to these blessings, these prayers, sung, spoken, aloud and quietly and silently, prayer for healing. Put this down. They say by mentioning the name of someone who is ill, whether in body and mind, by mentioning their name, you give them that extra oomph, a little extra healing energy. So we say these names aloud, even though the list may be long, because they need our help. So I will read the names of the people on the list in our community, but I encourage you in the room, if you know of someone who could use a little oomph, to mention their name out loud. And on YouTube, I know that we can't hear you, but go ahead and mention the names in the privacy of whatever location you're in, and the Holy One of Blessing will hear it. In our congregation this week, we are praying for Sarah Gonius Murray, Marilee Newman, Helen Steger Avera, Edna Hutcherson, Jerome Commissar, Jennifer Nielsen, Charlie Scharfman, Chaya Sarabat Etka, Chana Bat Joya, Zvi Hanft, Carolyn Troiano, Robert Ray, Pat Bloom, Orly Chavabat Sarah, Joel Solo, James Beardley, Sarah Murray, Diane Rothberg, Pesach Ben Libat Zvi, Ahuva Bat Sarah Avraham, Jay Krasner, Bill Tucker, Maxima Daphna, Alexandra, Simcha, and anyone else. Misha Barach may be found on page 109. Misha Barach Avotenu Mekor Abracha Limotenu to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. You can close your books for a few moments while I share a little bit of that I drew from Torah this week. Oh, that's the wrong sheet. There we go. Since the rabbinic period, Shavuot has been tied to the story of the Israelites receiving Torah at Sinai. Because of this, Shavuot has come to be dedicated to the idea of Torah study and Jewish education. One custom is an all-night or late-night study session held on the first evening of the festival called Tikkun Le'el Shavuot. We are actually going to do it tonight, which is the second night, but this is the way things are done this year, anyway. This custom had its beginnings in the Sfat Kabbalistic community around the 16th century and is designed to prepare Jews for receiving the Torah again on Shavuot. It was the Kabbalists' thought that by studying all night, they would experience the revelation in their own time. So tonight, as I said, following Kabbalat Shabbat services, we will gather to study Torah. We will read, learn, and study the book of Ruth. And I encourage all of us to bring up topics of Torah for study in addition, and come with questions. On Shavuot, the classic story of receiving the 10 tablets on Mount Sinai, or the 10 commandments on the 2 tablets on Mount Sinai, is read in Torah, as it was in this morning's service. So why are the 10 commandments so important in Judaism that we adorn our sanctuaries with them, memorize them, watch movies about them? I'm actually wearing them. I will share with you some knowledge I picked up from a reader's guide on Shavuot from Aleph Beta. Imagine that you've just boarded a long-haul flight, and a guy, let's call him Joe, sits down next to you. Clearly thrilled to meet a Jewish person, Joe turns to you and says, "You wouldn't mind if I asked you a couple of questions, would you?" He starts by saying, "If you had to boil it down for me in just a few sentences, what would you say your religion is all about?" My religion is all about love, and whenever I think about love, I feel so connected to God and to all the people around me. It's just the most beautiful thing in the world. You Jews, what's your religion about? How can we boil down Judaism to just a couple of sentences? The truth is, Joe's question was asked and answered many, many years ago in a well-known Talmudic story. Hillel, one of the great sages in Talmudic times, was approached by someone seeking to convert to Judaism. He came up to Hillel and said, "If I stand on one foot, could you teach me the entire Torah? I am willing to learn everything, but you have to give it to me while I stand on one foot." Hillel's oft-quoted response was, "That which you hate, don't do to your fellow." That's the whole Torah. The rest is commentary. Go and learn it. Now, if we're going to use this as an answer to Joe, it's important that we not confuse Hillel's answer with a different statement from another Talmudic sage, Rabbi Akiva. He said a great principle of the Torah is love your neighbor as yourself. Hillel didn't say that, and one of the interesting questions is why? When you compare these two sages' quotes, there is definitely something appealing about what Rabbi Akiva says. I mean, it certainly would appeal to the Joes of the world. Love seems stronger. It seems to be demanding more of people. If you think about what Hillel says, you don't have to actually love anyone at all. I mean, if you just refrain from being annoying, have you really loved anyone else? But it's not just the qualitative difference in the two statements that should prompt us to ask about Hillel's answer. Rabbi Akiva's dictum, love your neighbor as yourself, is actually a verse in Torah, but Hillel's quote, that which you hate, don't do to your fellow, doesn't appear anywhere in Torah. Where did he even come up with that? What is Hillel's source? So let's put aside the story of Hillel and see if we can find something grounded in a familiar Torah text. If we're looking for a response to Joe based on a specific Torah text, something does come to mind. There is an idea in Jewish tradition that the 10 Commandments are a kind of table of contents for the entire Torah. There are, of course, 613 throughout the whole Torah, but there's this list of 10, which seems to have been singled out on a grand fire and light show event at Mount Sinai. Many classical Jewish works explain that these 10 commandments were singled out because somehow this list gives us a way to organize the whole Torah. If we want to boil down Judaism to just a couple of sentences, then I think this table of contents idea is really attractive. You don't have 613 random laws. Instead, you have a system. An organized system is a lot easier to explain to the Joes of the world because it is a beauty to it, and it can be much more easily offer meaning. Certainly more than trying to think about hundreds of disparate things. I mean, just look about any song. It's comprised of lots of different musical notes, and those individual notes become unified into something which is elegant, a melody with aesthetic qualities. The Torah, I believe, is just like that. It's got so many laws, but the 10 Commandments is what unifies all those disparate laws into a singular, beautiful system. But how do you pack all the depth and meaning of the 613 Commandments into the space of just 10? How can you make a beautiful system out of something as concise as the 10 Commandments? This is a question we could really ask about any part of the Torah. How is it that we find such depth in just a few words? So let's look at obvious structural features. The most obvious thing that stands out is the fact that there are 2 tablets, but if you think about it, it doesn't have to be that way. There could just as easily have been 1 tablet with all 10 commandments on it. The fact that the list is broken into 2 groups, each on a separate tablet, seems to imply that we are dealing with 2 categories. The question is, what are these 2 categories? I'm just going to list them in English. So, I'm the Lord your God. No other gods before me. Do not take the Lord's name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day. Honor your father and mother. The other one. Don't kill. Don't commit adultery. Don't steal. Don't lie. And don't covet other people's things. Where am I? Okay, so the first tablet basically deals with relationships between people and God, while the second tablet is really about relationships between people and other people. But when we go through the first 5 on the first tablet to check out if our categorization holds up, commandment number 1, I am the Lord your God, is clearly about the relationship between us and God. The next 2 commandments Do not have any gods before me, and do not take my name in vain. Also about relationships with man and God. Honor the Sabbath day to keep it holy. The Sabbath is also something which guides our relationship, and we are in the image of God. So far, we're 4 for 4. All of these are about relationships between people and God, but then we get to the 5th commandment, and in this category, honor your father and mother. That one seems to be a fly in the ointment. Last time I checked, your parents were people. So what are they doing in this category if it's all about relationships between people and God? So what we really need to do is find some sort of common denominator between God on one hand and the parents on the other. And the simplest way to think about it, I believe, is that we often think of God as our creator, but God is actually just one of our creators because we have human creators also, our parents. Not that our parents are gods. We owe our existence to them, and we can intuit that both parents and God are above us as an authority figures in the hierarchy of our existence. So maybe a more accurate way to describe the focus of the first tablet is what we might call vertical relationships. If we go with this definition on the first tablet, then we could say the second tablet is about horizontal relationships with our peers. We started trying to craft our synopsis of Judaism by thinking about that famous Talmudic story in which Hillel answers that student or would-be convert. Hillel tries to boil down the entire Torah to one principle: that which is hateful, don't do to your friend. But we are left wondering where Hillel was getting that from. Did he just make it up out of thin air? I think the answer is actually extrapolated from the Ten Commandments. If you look at the Ten Commandments as a mirror of our relationships between human and the divine, and relationships between human and human, what emerges is a central unifying theme of don't treat others the way you wouldn't want to be treated yourself. You wouldn't want to be violated. You wouldn't want your essential self to be violated, nor any other level of your identity, sacred relationships, possessions, or reputation. At all of these various different levels of self, we want our integrity upheld. Don't do to others what you don't want done to you. Ultimately, maybe Rabbi Akiva and Hillel are not arguing about the central principle in Torah. It's just one of the foundations of the other. Yes, love is what it's all about, but love based on what? It must be love based on respect. That which is hateful to you, do not do to your friend. Respect is the foundation of love. Respect is what Judaism is about. And it is the guiding principle for the attitude and actions we need to bring to all of our relationships all the time. And that is what we can tell Joe on the plane. And I want to end with a song that I'm pretty sure the two of you know. It's a song that I don't get to teach in Sunday school too often because by the time Shavuot comes along, no more classes. So can you pass these around to everybody? There's more than enough, I think. It's a song by Debbie Friedman called The 613 Commandments. The first 7 lines are the chorus, so we'll come back to it. You just put it down there. Well, there were 613 commandments that Moses handed to us. As we stood at the foot of the mountain Sinai, our dear Moses started to fuss. He threw 2 tablets onto the ground, and much to our surprise, the 10 commandments broke broken to pieces, and we couldn't believe our eyes, because the Torah was much too long to describe to all the Jews. Our God decided to write the 10 Commandments that said the don'ts and do's. Every commandment talked about the way we had to live. When we work or play, cook or clean, borrow, take or give. Well, there were 613 commandments that Moses handed to us. As we stood at the foot of the mountain Sinai, our dear Moses started to fuss. He threw 2 tablets onto the ground, and much to our surprise, the 10 Commandments broke into pieces, and we couldn't believe our eyes. As we stood at the bottom of the mountain and listened to Moshe, he asked how many wanted a Torah, and all of us yelled, yeah! We thought about the way life was and the way life ought to be. Without the Torah, we would have been lost and stuck with idolatry. Well, there were 613 commandments that Moses handed to us. As we stood at the foot of the mountain Sinai, our dear Moses started to fuss. He threw 2 tablets onto the ground, and much to our surprise, the 10 Commandments broke into pieces, and we couldn't believe our eyes. So when it's time to celebrate Chag Shavuot, we all rejoice because the Torah's ours to study, teach, and quote. Had we not made a promise to be chosen and to choose, the word that there wouldn't be a people called the Jews. So there were 613 commandments that Moses handed to us. As we stood at the foot of the mountain Sinai, our dear Moses started to fuss. He threw 2 tablets onto the ground, and much to our surprise, the 10 Commandments broke into pieces, and we couldn't believe our eyes. The 10 Commandments broke into pieces, and we couldn't believe our eyes. You're welcome to keep that. I saw you figuring out the chords. We will begin our concluding blessings with Aleinu on page 586. Please rise. .586. It's there somewhere. Bottom paragraph. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. Next page. שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושבי קרוב השמיים עמו, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו וזולתו, כך כתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים עמו, והארץ מתחת אין עוד. Page 591. ונאמר וחי אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו shemo echad. You may be seated. Kadisha Tom, Mourner's Kaddish, page 598. This week in Charlottesville, we are commemorating the yahrzeits of Bertha Aronoff, Sylvia Bashkow, Robert Conrad, Morris Dwoskin, Frank Gross, Charles Barrett Hoffman, Sandra Cantor, Gerard Morgenstern, Mildred Harris Rice, Anne Ritter, Leonid Rosofsky, Rita Cheyenne, Theodore Cheyenne, Nana Stromberg, Jenny Volk-Levine, Helmut Wolf, Julius Marymore, Tilly Marymore. And we are still in Shiva Shloshim for Peter Volk, brother of Amy Stromberg, and Grace Zisk, mother of Michael, Robert, and Dan. Those who are in mourning, those who wish to join them in support, please rise for the Mourner's Kaddish, 598. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, v'alma divrachute v'amlich malchute, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kari v'imru, Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach leolam umei omaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalla l'shmei d'kodisha b'richu, le'ela min kol b'chata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechemata, da'amiram b'yalma v'yimru, Amen. Yehi shlama Rabbah min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru, Amen. Oseh shalom b'imroma, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru, Amen. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be for a blessing. You may be seated. Very few announcements. There will be I brought some dairy foods in honor of Shavuot for after our service, so you're welcome to join. There's also going to be a bar mitzvah and morning. I think there's a bar mitzvah tomorrow. And the minyan will be leading. We'll be having the 10 o'clock in the morning Shabbat morning service, and that's all I have here. Unless there's something else. Okay. We will conclude with Adon Olam and then go into the other room for Kiddush Motzi, and we'll find a place to sit if you want to stay for study. Adon Olam is on 625. Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Le'ed Nasa V'chefzo Kol Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Ve'acharei Kichot HaKol Levado Yimloch Nora Ve'hu Haya Ve'hu Hove Ve'hu Yeh Ve'tifara Ve'hu Yeh Ve'tifara Ve'hu Echad Ve'yein Sheni Lehamshilo Lehachbira Ve'li Reshit Ve'li Tachlit Ve'lo Ha'oz Ve'cham Yisra Ve'lo Ha'oz Ve'cham Yisra Ve'hu Eli גואלי וצורב לי ביצרה והוא ניסי ומנוסי ונתקוסי ביום אקרא ונתקוסי ביום אקרא בידו הפקיד רוחי והייתי שם ויעירה ועם רוחי גביעתי אדוני לי ולא יירא אדוני לי ולא יירא. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. We'll just take a few minutes to move into the next room.